Hey fam, welcome to another episode of the Prophetic Listening Podcast. I wanted to give a quick tee up for today's episode. In episode 7, I had a really special guest, Lindsay Ellis, appear on the show. And if you remember from that early episode, she and I did some prophetic listening about a career change, a potential job that she was up for, situation with relationships with her sister, with her son, and God came through in a really, really powerful way. And so I thought, in honor of Thanksgiving and the season of gratitude, that I would actually feature a testimony episode featuring Lindsay, where she comes back and she shares with us all that has happened since that episode 7, when we did that session with her. So listen to this amazing testimony and be awed by the power of God. I hope that this is a blessing to you. Happy Thanksgiving. And I want to thank you guys for your support of the show. It has meant the world to me. God bless, guys. Bye. Hey fam, welcome to the Prophetic Listening Podcast, the art of hearing God's perfect will. The podcast that invites you to tune into God's guidance and discover his flawless plan for your life. I'm Michelle Honora, your host, and I'm thrilled to have you here. I'm an author, speaker, and spiritual direction coach, as well as the founder and director of the Center for Prophetic Listening. In a world filled with noise and distractions, finding clarity in God's will can be a challenge, especially if you're facing significant life transitions. Whatever challenges you're encountering, you're about to learn how to discern God's perfect will for both significant and everyday situations. So tune in, open your heart, and embark with me on this sacred quest to hear God's voice and discern his perfect will for your life. Welcome to the Prophetic Listening Podcast. Hello, fam. Welcome to another episode of the Prophetic Listening Podcast. Today, we have a special guest with us, and actually, she is not a stranger to the Prophetic Listening Podcast family. You may have remembered her from episode number 7, titled Navigating Life's Crossroads, with Lindsay Ellis. So, Lindsay is an incredible transformation specialist. She's a visionary founder of Live Empowered, and she has an extensive background as a certified coach, helping develop a powerful system designed to empower working parents to take control of their lives. We did a session together. It feels like forever ago, but it really wasn't that long ago. But we did a session a while back about pivotal decisions that she was facing in different elements of her life, career move, her son, relationship stuff. So with her sibling, and she has come back to share some testimony and also to share what's been happening since we last met. So I'm going to stop talking and just say, welcome, Lindsay. So glad that you're here. And thank you for joining me again.
Absolutely. I love being here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So why don't you, first of all, I'd love to start with your thoughts and how you felt after the session, because that was your first time experiencing prophetic listening. And usually it takes some time to process for some people, all that comes up out of the session. But how did that feel for you? And what was that process like for you in terms of registering all that God revealed?
I remember walking into the session, I had no idea what to expect. And I didn't know what to expect. And so when we did the session, I will say that it did take me some time to process it. But overall, I just felt like my shoulders drop. I felt like this ease. I felt the fact that, the way that he was talking to me and the way he was talking to you was very different, but very the same, very alike. And so I felt this peace. And I just remember walking away with trust, and trust. And there was a couple things that came up over the time is, one, I had already, before I'd, come on, is that I was in deep prayer a lot about this opportunity that I had. Yeah. And I wasn't sure if I should have brought it up or not, because I was like, I feel like I'm in a good place, but I really, would love to see if I'm in the right lane, if I'm what he's thinking about this. And, I remember him saying like, yes, right away. Like, yes, I think I saw an airplane. I saw purpose, I saw joy and happiness and complete fulfillment. And then I think, one of the things that you heard was, uh, it was something I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was like, I will make a way.
Mm-hmm.
Something like, it might seem like forever coming, but I will make a way.
Mm-hmm.
And when I tell you their interview process was forever away, like it was, it was, it was a really long, and rightfully so. There was a process, there was a purpose to their process, and I totally get it, and I respected it fully. But,
Yeah.
I wanted to, I just, I knew that I was feeling so connected to the company, but I didn't know exactly why. But I also, like, I just loved everybody that I had met. I loved everything that they did. And eventually I did get the job. So I got the job, and it was a big celebration. And I, of course, said yes immediately. I was like, yes. And I started, and it is like, I continuously every day have been like, this truly is a gift from God. Like, he certainly did make a way, because when I look at the caliber of what this company does, I'm like, I'm so excited to be a part of it. But then at the same time, I'm like, how did I get chosen for this? Like, this is amazing. And so he certainly did make a way, but I just feel like there couldn't be a better position for me to be in.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, like, I am overjoyed and so excited.
Yay.
So,
my gosh, that's awesome. Such a gift. How long after our session, just curious, like how long after roughly did you get the news that you got it?
So when did we do our session? It must have been, I had to be like a month. It was at least a month or over a month.
Yeah. That sounds right.
Yeah, because because I think I sent you an email and I was like, I got the job.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it was at least a month after, which I had already at that point been interviewing for a month and a half, so it was like, or 2 months. It was a very long process. So a very good process, but it was it was certainly, I remember thinking to myself, just trust. And it wasn't like, trust the answer, trust what he said to me. It was just like, I'm just going to trust God, and because I know that, like, he will change things on us. And I know that paths, are different, or things come up. And, but I really, like, after our conversation, I decided to walk away, and I didn't want to have any necessarily, like, attachment to anything that I learned through the session. I wanted the awareness. I wanted, I got the awareness, I got some peace, but most of all, I felt validation and I felt trust. Like, I walked away feeling like I can hear him, and I want to remember that voice. I want to remember, like, so when I'm tapping into it, I want to know where I was, and grounded in that, like, I too can hear him, and all I have to do is, like, ask. And I think you mentioned to me something about, like, in a muscle, and it's like, when you go to the gym every day, you get stronger. Well, when you talk to him every day, you start to hear it you start to hear it more and clearly. And so I think that's what I really ended up walking away with, was just, like, the trust and the practice.
That's so beautiful. You're such a good speaker. You communicate so well. That's awesome. Yeah. And what a blessing that I love how you said you weren't focused on the outcome, even though we were asking God, how's this going to shake out? You were focused on the peace that he gave you and blessed you with. And you were focused on trusting in his character and in his goodness, that he had your back no matter what. And I think that is a true mark of maturity in a believer. Frankly, one that I still struggle with. I'll be honest with you. There are times when I'm asking God, how's this going to work? And I'll read something that he has told me again and again and again, because and that tells me that in those moments, I'm more invested in the outcome than I am in the creator who will ensure or not ensure the outcome. And so I love that you had the maturity and the foresight to go, you know what, I'm going to take my eyes off of this and I'm just going to fix it on my papa and trust that he is going to take care of me regardless of what happens. That's true faith. And so kudos to you. Like truly, that's awesome. Yeah. Yeah.
I definitely did. I don't want it to seem like it was super easy to do that, because there were certainly times where, I fell in that hole, but it was the ultimate, like the faith. I think it's like that. I always forget the verse and I shouldn't, but like in Matthew, I think it's Matthew 9 or something, where she's like, she just wanted to touch his robe. And,
yes.
and so like that, every time I close my eyes, like I literally, anytime I come into trouble or anytime like I'm trying to focus on the outcome, like I've literally latched onto that verse. And it's just like, because you had faith in me, it's going to be okay. There is no attachment. It's just, so I've tried to like really latch onto that and know that I can only do so much, but yeah, in God's timing, right?
So true. And yeah, in his timing. And that's the fun part. Something I love that you mentioned that verse in that passage, because for me, I think what has been a comfort to me lately has been, I think it's in Acts and it's also in Romans, where it talks about God is no respecter of persons. And sometimes lately I've been holding that really close to my heart, because if I see God blessing someone or doing something in somebody else's life, or if I even just look at a biblical character where God, for example, Ruth redeeming massive disappointment, or David, him being hidden for such a period of time and then eventually stepping into, the destiny that God spoke over him when he was a teenager. I look at those figures and I just think to myself, okay, God, if you did it for them, you can do it for me. And you're no respecter of persons. You don't play favorites. So yeah, I'm just going to rest in that and rest in your character and what your word says about you. But so good. Awesome. So you have this fantastic, sorry, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say, I love that, because it just the other day I was talking to my husband and my son. I was actually telling them, how I came home from training and I was like, oh my gosh, da, da, da. And my son was like, I want to do what you do for a living, and and so I was like, I know, I bet everybody would, I was just like so excited. And but I did tell him, I was like, I told my husband, I said, honestly, I look back and I've had a range of experience in so many different things. And there has been so many times that I'm like, okay, God, like, what is it my turn? Is it my greatness? Like, I want to show my greatness, and I see other people, moving forward or doing other things. And it's like, I want to be like, well, what about me? But somehow or another, like, especially after we spoke too, is I'm just like, okay, like I trust and that faith. And it all came together for me, and I explained to my family at dinner yesterday that I said, you know what? If I hadn't gone through the last 7 years of all the different training that I've gone through, and then added that to all of my corporate experience and training, and added it to this education and that education, I don't know if I would have been the right person for this job. But because of all of those things, I feel like that's what he was leading me to. And it just made me feel so thankful that, like, I just said, Jesus, take the wheel. Like, I will do whatever. And even in times of impatience, like I still listened, and I was thankful for that. Because I feel like I'm on the other side of that, and he's really allowing me to step into my greatness. And so just, I love what you were saying, because it's true.
Yeah. It's so good. That's so good. Hey fam, do you have a desire to hear God with greater clarity, consistency, and ease? Do you want to deepen your bond with Holy Spirit? Imagine spending the next 90 days walking hand in hand with God, discovering how to hear His voice, not just for you, but for others too. Introducing the Prophetic Listening Discipleship Academy, a 90-day self-paced ministry and discipleship school designed to help you master the art of prophetic listening. This is a golden opportunity for those of you hungry to fortify your walk with Jesus and heighten your sensitivity to Holy Spirit's voice. This academy launches this coming January, but here's the catch. It's invitation only. So go to propheticlisteningacademy.com and fill out the interest form so that you can be the first to know when enrollment opens. Again, that's propheticlisteningacademy.com. You'll be the first to know when the doors open. One of the things that we covered in our session in episode 7, y'all check out episode 7 if you haven't seen that episode. It's really good. But we talked about we sought the Lord for his counsel regarding your role as a parent, regarding your role as well, let's start with that, like regarding your role as a parent. And you just mentioned, is he a teenager now? Has his birthday?
And no, he's 12. He's almost 13, but he's he's still sitting at 12 for a couple more months.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So in the aftermath of that, that session, or when we were listening about that, I remember just the Lord, he was so kind in his words to you. Like he just kept reassuring you what a wonderful mom you already are, and just giving you counsel. How did that feel? And what has life been like, in that part of your world?
Well, like even just you mentioning it makes me want to cry. I think like anytime like my son is involved, like the amount of love I have for him is just like so big. And and I'm sure every parent's like that, like, of course we all love our kids, but, like I felt more confident leaving, and being like, okay, when I listen to my own intuition around, do I step in or do I step back? Do I step in? Do I step back? I've been a little bit more, I've noticed it a little bit more, and I've allowed myself, like for instance, I've never made my child play a sport before.
Yeah.
Like I've never forced him to do any of that. I've never felt obligated or needed that was necessary.
Mm-hmm.
But this coming season, I actually had this thought, and I've been having this thought for a while. And I was like, you know what? No, I'm a good parent. Like I know what my child needs, and I feel like I need to bring this up. And so I did tell him, I said, I feel like you need to do an individual sport. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I feel like you need to wrestle. Like, I feel like that is something that you need to experience for at least one season. And he fought me on it a little bit, but we pulled up the research, we pulled up this, I had him talk to the coach, like I had him talk to other wrestlers, and he ended up doing it. And so he's also on I started my job on the same day he had his first wrestling practice. So we were in it together, and, he doesn't hate it, which is a great sign. He's learning, and he seems to be doing really, like, I mean, it hasn't been that long, but he's, I love what he's already learning about himself. Yeah. And that's why I asked him to just like try it, because I know how he wants to be a really good football player, and he wants to be a really good, like all these things. And I'm just like, man, if you could learn how to be competitive within yourself without having the accountability or the reliability on another teammate. Like there's no pointing fingers. There's no like, oh, well, they missed the ball or they this. It's like you get to decide, and like you get to learn very quickly about yourself in an individual sport. Mm-hmm. You also get to learn resilience. You get to learn your weaknesses. You get to learn your strengths. You get to learn how to leverage them. You get to learn how to bounce back from things. I was like, you can learn so much if you just do an individual sport. Yeah. And so so as far as the parenting goes, like with tremendous amounts of love, I did tell him, and he is doing it, and we're having a good time.
That's fantastic. And awesome that he listened, like even though grudgingly he listened, he's doing it. And it makes sense that you encouraged him to do that, because that's self-mastery, that's self-leadership, that's self-discipline. I mean, there's so many things that he's developing individually in addition to, what he's already doing in team sports. So that's kudos to you, Mama. Great job.
Thanks. But I did think about, our session actually when I was having this conversation with him, and I was like, I pulled back and I was like, no, I'm not that mom. And I'm like, today I am that mom because I feel so
Yes.
it was something.
Good for you. That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. So you shared with us kind of the things that have come to pass or, fruit that you're starting to see.
Mhm.
What are some things that, are you're still waiting on? Because it's perfectly normal when you're hearing God for a promise, a solution, something, sometimes his timing. So why don't you
Yeah.
share with us, what's going on with that?
So I'll share about my sister too. So my sister, I had been really trying to write a letter to her, and I'd written and written and written, and even after our conversation, I had written again, and something just kept on like pulling me back, where I was like, maybe I just need to like give time, because God, what he revealed, in that session was that I had the choice to forgive. I had the choice to move forward. I had like that was a choice that I got to make.
Yeah.
And to what I could be really leaning in on him for and praying about is the emotions behind it.
Mhm.
And so I allowed myself to just like dabble in that a little bit, because it is such a highly emotional thing. I mean, that's family,
Yeah.
and so I allowed myself some space to do that, and just like, become more aware of like what bothers me about this or that, or can I get over that, or, I'm just praying to him a little bit more around that.
Mhm.
My sister and I have started talking a little bit more frequently.
Good.
Um, not like to the point where like we're on the other side of things, but like at least there's a communication that has taken place.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit more frequently than it hasn't. We've just like really text message. So I'm feeling good about that. And I'm just like continuously just like monitoring and and praying for like my own emotional healing and what I need to do to around those feelings and emotions,
Mm.
with the choice that I can forgive, and I do forgive, and I do want to have a relationship.
Mhm.
But I'm still working through my own emotions with
Yeah.
God. So,
Yeah. That makes total sense. And um, what a beautiful and like well-rounded response, because again, it goes back to your maturity as a Christian and as a believer and as a woman, like not pushing for a resolution to happen in this situation, but really being sensitive to his timing and sensitive to also to what's going on with your sister and what she needs. And, just recognizing, hey, there's a whole other human being in this equation. And it's okay if I don't have a conclusion right away, like if that
um,
makes sense. Right. So
yeah.
that's wonderful.
Thanks.
Well,
Yeah.
what were you gonna say?
Oh, nope, that's it. Yeah, there was one other question that I had around that program or whatever, and I would say that one is the only thing that is like completely unresolved at the moment. And
Oh, yes.
I feel like that might just be like you and I got the same message there,
Hmm.
that like, this is a lesson for her, not a lesson, like, and whatever, to me, it was like, I'm still like really praying around the actions behind that on like
Hmm.
what I need to do or what I should do. But again, I'm trying to, I want to, I want done what is right, but at
Yeah.
the same time, like I also don't want to plant a negative seed in my heart to
Hmm.
where it goes over a line. And
Hmm.
so that's why I'm just being very patient and slow with it. And I've got clearly a lot of other things going on. So but that I would say, like in that order of all the things that we talked to, all the things, there has been, there's just been so much peace around everything and trust that um that I know things are going to unfold however God wants them to unfold.
Hmm.
And like I just get to be here.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautifully put. Yeah, I remember that particular question that we asked. We had almost identical responses. Like that was a
Yeah.
very strong, he had a very strong answer for that. So I will be curious to see what ends up unfolding, but I do think it's also wise to not act, out of impatience or, and also to not let bitterness take root, in this process. So
Yes,
yeah.
that's the key for me. I don't want, I know that that's not a God thing. And
Yeah.
so, I'm very careful on when things like that come up for me to allow myself to kind of like step back and process a little bit further, because that might just be the enemy swooping in, or it
Mm-hmm.
might be, sometimes like God doesn't want anybody to be bitter.
Yeah.
He doesn't want you to act out of bitterness. He doesn't want, so I'm trying to just give it space and let it, I know it'll come to me when it's right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. So good. Well, we only have a couple minutes left, but with the time we have left, just curious, because you have a Bible study, you're in ministry, you do, you know a lot of people. So have you had opportunities to do prophetic listening with other people, or to spread the word about it? And again, it's okay if you haven't. I'm just curious.
I've had conversations.
Yeah.
Like I haven't done it with anybody. I wouldn't consider myself qualified, a qualified person to do that, but I would like to be. I'm still working on that muscle, but I think that I did have a lot of conversations. I believe one of the girls from my Bible study
Yes.
did reach out to you. Yeah. So
Episode's coming up.
yeah. And but yeah, it's a really interesting conversation because people really don't know what to think about it.
Yeah.
And so the explaining doesn't do it justice. It's almost like, I've just been sharing your podcast with them.
Yeah.
But that's why I was also excited to do this episode with you, because I just think that there's so much power in, this isn't like a a situation to where like you ask a question and you're a fortune teller, or like telling somebody
Mm,
the future that's going to happen for them. Like that's just not like the case. I think it's more or less like you're getting something, they're getting something, you share answers, and when you see that it's alike or aligned, like it is giving you this like verification that, or this validation that like you can be deeply rooted and like and hear him.
yeah.
And it's not necessarily like trying to forecast anything, but it's just that validation that he's so there and so real and so prominent that we can listen by ourselves. And I think that you're just providing the space to help people believe in that for themselves, and just dig a little bit deeper in their relationship with Jesus. And it's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. I told you all
Mhm.
she's a really good speaker. Um, thank you so much for joining me on this episode, Lindsay. I'm so happy to see what God is doing in your life, in your walk, in your relationship with your son, and all the other things that are pending too. I believe that there will be even more of a testimony coming forth, and I can't wait to hear all about it. So for people who are interested in following you, following what's happening in your world, where can they find you?
The best place is probably to find me on Facebook, Lindsay Ellis. I think you'll probably post it. But then also, I have a I have a website that is under construction. It's going to be updated, but it's thelindsayellis.com, and I have a couple free downloads on there if people are interested in learning their own core values, or
Yeah.
choices and discipline in their own choices and reactions. But yeah.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And of course, guys, you know where to go if you want to learn more about prophetic listening, propheticlistening.com. I will see you on the next episode. Thanks for joining us. Hey, fam. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this episode. I really, really hoped that you were blessed by it. If this taught you anything about hearing God more clearly, about listening to Him with other people, if it inspired you watching other people connect with the voice of God, I want to encourage you, share this show. Don't be greedy. Don't keep this all to yourself. Share the show. Let other people know about the Prophetic Listening Podcast. Share it on your social, text a friend about it, bring it up in conversation, whatever that looks like for you. Also, if you could do me a huge solid and leave a review, guys, that helps increase visibility. There is nothing like word of mouth traction. So please leave a review. Lastly, if you want to connect with me on social media, you can hit me up on Instagram at @themichelleonora. You can also find my work, my resources, my e-courses, as well as the certification program on www.propheticlistening.com. Thank you again. Tune into the next episode. We're here every week. Can't wait to see you on the flip side. God bless.